Hello.
Can't see the. Oh, hey, Aaron and Max. Cool. Yeah, it had show non-video participants hidden, so I couldn't see who was here. All right.
All right.
Hey, Max.
Greetings.
Greetings. All right, how y'all doing?
Excellent. We have some new stuff.
Hey,
Let's talk
It
about
almost
our
seems
spec.
like life, like natural selection. Like just
Yeah,
do a bunch of random things and then pick the best one.
yeah, genetic algorithms get really interesting in this area. I don't know of anyone that's doing like genetic algorithms around agentic stuff. That would be a pretty fascinating research area of like generate the agentic loops, see which ones actually survive by some metric. Um, anyway, be
I
crazy.
think I even read a paper on that where they synthesize program trees, which then can mutate better than text.
Mm,
Anyway,
all
yeah,
right.
let's talk about our new additions to the spec. Maybe we start with the easy one with the page extension because that's mostly straightforward.
Yeah,
Who
let's
wants
do
to
it.
share?
I'm happy to share. I was just pulling up the repo. Should I pull up let's see.
The 051 draft
Okay,
branch. No, or
cool.
yeah, yeah.
051 draft. All right, let me share my screen. Let's see.
Maybe I can already talk about the biggest change.
Yeah,
I
please.
ditched the distinction between core extensions and the extended extensions and moved them all together into extensions.
Or oh, thank you. Yeah, we
Because
had
that
been.
was always confusing everybody, including us.
Yep, yep, and we had
And
been saying over and over again that it seems like these are just the same thing. We should just call them all the same thing. Okay,
yeah,
cool. Is there a PR for this, or should I just navigate the branch? Oh, looks.
just a branch. Yeah, I haven't created a PR yet. I think you
There's this
can.
PR. Looks like you did create a
Then that
PR, but back in
Okay,
July.
then that should work. That should work.
Okay,
So
cool.
you just go to spec MD, our trusted core spec,
Mm-hmm.
and there we have.
Oh, but it's not going to be. It's going to be
It's not
everything.
rendered.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's also going to be everything, right? We need to. Well, actually,
it's medium. Okay, look
gotcha.
for
Okay.
page node extension, maybe in the browser search.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Here's the page node. That's an example of one. Do you want me to pull it up in SpecMD though?
Yeah, in
The
spec
page node.
MD is,
Okay. Uh, node extension.
and then
There we
this
go.
second. Yeah, can it jump
It
and
will
the
not
top?
jump. That's okay.
No.
I see where it's supposed to be.
Oh
I
yeah,
see it. It's right here. All right.
it's rather short. Yeah, that's all. So
Okay.
we have an extension. We have two small properties. One is the page number,
Mm-hmm.
which is an optional number starting at
Mm-hmm.
1. We can discuss each of these points. So in
Mm-hmm.
books, there's a standard, there's an ISO standard for book page numbering, which mandates books start at page number 1. So I thought, okay, maybe start at 1 as well. It
Seems
could
good.
also start at 0, and then we have a label for pages, which
Mm-hmm.
implies that this is somehow a label that nobody really knows what it's for, but if it's there, you can use it in the UI. But it's not a page title, because if it's a page title, you would want to see it on the canvas as well somehow, because it seems important. But if it's just a
Yep.
label, then maybe it's, so it should be the optional label for the other UI's view.
I like that. That's one of the challenges with Markdown is that you have both the file name and potentially also an H1 in the file itself. And both of them can be used. It is not clear whether to use which one to use as the title, right? And so I like calling this label to explicitly say this is not the title, right? You could use it that way if you want, but we're not going to call it a title. So I like that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, this all seems straightforward. So then you would end up with, and this is a node, just to repeat back to you some things. This is a node extension. So I could have a node in my set of nodes that is the page node for that thing. That node, since it's a full node, can have like spatial orientation on the overall global canvas, right? Like it can have can have dimensions, size, and all the other stuff that's on the base node property. And then if I want to, I could optionally use the parent-child relation to say that these nodes belong to this page node. And or I could also, if I wish to, use the group relative extension to make that page into a group with some other nodes. It's like, is there a recommendation for how to do that? Oh, here we go. Yeah,
No,
indicated by the parent-child relation. Okay.
it's very brief, yeah.
That makes sense. Indicted, by the way, instead of indicated, in case you have it up in your editor right now.
Yeah, no, this is a typo.
Yep. Cool. Okay. Aaron, any questions about the page node extension before we burrow into transclusion?
Honestly, this page node extension is very far outside of my area of expertise, so I have no feedback to give other than to just like close my eyes and give you a thumbs up.
That'll work. All right. Well, should we talk about transclusion? Do you have
Yeah,
the material in the spec, or should I bring up your message in Discord?
it's exactly the same. I
Okay.
just copied from the spec. So
Okay.
nose as resource is actually the right thing.
Great.
Yeah. So motivation. Maybe
All
motivation
right.
doesn't belong to the spec, but I wanted to mention the word transclusion at least once in the spec for
Mm-hmm.
people who know.
I'm not entirely
Mm-hmm.
sure the best like way to include this, but I think that the motivation for why a feature exists is extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was nowhere to be seen in anything related to the spec, that I think that would be a mistake. Because when you're
Yeah.
designing the spec, even when
Okay.
people are using the spec, you have to know like why does this feature exist? What problems is it trying to solve?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it might be that this all deserves an entry in the design decisions document. Once we kind of have actually decided, I guess we're working on the design right now and we haven't fully decided, but once we have, maybe that's where that, and we could potentially even link to that from the motivation, like for more information, see design decisions, this entry. All right, but let's talk about it. Using a node B, do you mind if I just read through this, like
Fine.
narrate aloud, Max? And is that okay?
Yeah, it's brief enough. Yeah.
Okay. So using a node B as a resource in another node A can be seen as a form of transclusion. Okay, so resources prior to now have been we haven't supported the idea of pointing a resource at another node. This is especially useful if a node contains a complex inner life, such as a number of child nodes via parent-child, and should appear in multiple places on the canvas. Okay, I guess that's the two. I might break those into bulleted, like, to make it clear that those are two conditions. I guess this is and/or, right? Not to be persnickety, but if you wanted to a node to appear in multiple places on the canvas, this is the way to do it, regardless of whether it contains a complex inner life.
That's true, but it's
Um,
especially useful if you have both, because if you
yes,
only want to display the same image on two places, you can just copy the node and just have it display the same image. That's easy.
true.
But if there's more on the node arranged and it should appear in two places, then really this transclusion is what you want.
Yep.
That's
Yeah. Okay, so that nodes to be used, I agree with the motivation. I'm with you. Nodes to be used
Okay.
as resources are not explicitly added to the resources array. Okay, interesting. So resource, I'm trying to remember how resources work. Instead, every node in the OCIF document is automatically available as a resource as well. Ah, okay, okay. They're addressed by prefixing the node ID with pound. So, oh, here's an example node, and then there's the implicit resource. Oh, interesting. So it's kind of like a relative link in HTML.
That's the
Um,
inspiration, yeah.
very cool. Um, yep, and the IDs are unique. I mean, yeah, this is like the way that CSS works, right? More or less. What's
Yep.
the, yeah, classes are, yeah, this is the pound
Classes
is the
dot, and
thing.
this is ID,
Classes
yeah.
dot ID is pound. Okay, great. Um, all right. So then wait. Oh, it generates this implicit resource. Gotcha. So this is not actually, so this is not going to be in the resources array. You're just showing what is
Yeah. How can I
okay.
phrase that better?
I mean, your implicit resource, I would just like maybe add a note here that's like this will not be present in the resources array, but nodes, other nodes can leverage it as if it um were there.
Should we
But
all,
let's
as a part of this, should we also define that an explicit resource should not have an ID that starts with a hashtag?
That sounds like a
hmm.
really smart caveat,
Yeah,
yeah. Mhm.
yeah, that is a good point. Although I'm trying to think if let's look at how resources are defined. Um, resources, they let's see, go up to
I think we don't have that restriction yet.
I think you're right. And I was just going to run down to what we do have, what we do say about resources right now. A reference to a resource, which can be an image, an audio file, or node, see resources. Resources can be empty, in which case a node is acting as a transform to other nodes, maybe. Resource content is cropped or limited by the node boundaries. This is commonly called clip children. Only in this respect, the resource content is a kind of child. CSS is called overflow hidden. Resources can be defined ornamental borders. Resource fit, okay. Size and resources.
I think it's down in the resource area explanation.
Okay, it's
If
the
we go
path
to assets
extension.
resources,
Mm-hmm. Oh, it is in this file though. Yeah, assets resources. Okay. Okay. OCIF news two kinds of assets, resources and schemas. Both are managed
So
similarly.
the ID
Yeah.
property down there says OCIF type ID, and it says CID for details.
Mm-hmm.
So all the details of the ID are globally defined somewhere else.
Yep. Right over, it's up there, up towards the top here.
yeah, there's
Um,
the OCIF type ID, and it says it's a string, which should be unique. So
hmm.
it would
So
be
we should
Okay.
default.
probably define a list of disallowed characters, or maybe a list of allowed characters, but disallowed is probably more sensible in case people want to use different languages or whatever in the IDs. Um, I would recommend avoiding like just straight up ban the hashtag as we've seen, and also uh, dots and slashes and colons, because these are often used as like path specifiers. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
somebody wants to specify like a um a series of three node IDs in like a
Mm-hmm.
hierarchy by doing one ID slash another ID slash another ID.
Hmm.
I would like to allow most characters and most strings, but yeah, we could disallow just the leading hash mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. That's a helpful point, Aaron. Thank you. Let me run down back to transclusion, which thankfully doesn't show up all over our spec. All right, so yeah, you're saying when you define a node like this Berlin node, position 100, 100, size 150, and you don't have to do anything else, and it will be implicitly available as a resource in the resource array. So
With
semantics, if
its
node,
own MIME type. So the MIME type is the
oh,
same as for canvases. So I have not introduced different MIME types for different parts of a
oh
canvas.
yeah.
But maybe we should. I am not sure.
Is that a valid OCIF JSON?
That
I would say
ah
that an OCIF node is not an OCIF file, so that the MIME type doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, that feels strange.
okay. So then maybe we need a new MIME type for the node.
Hmm. Yeah, possibly. Because, yeah, right,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
we would expect it to be able to be evaluated as a valid OCIF file. Um, we could have fallbacks for a node, like, so that we would be talking about this fragment, right? Right here?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So then the question is, if I evaluated this with an OCIF validator, would it be valid?
Not at
And
all.
not at all. Yeah, the problem is we don't have this nodes. If we only had this, it's valid, but we don't have that nodes thing above it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Aaron is right, and we need another.
Okay. Are you
But
making
then,
notes, Max, on your side? Because I'm not taking notes today.
yes, I
Uh,
am.
okay, thank you.
But I then what is the name? Is it application slash OCIV dot node plus JSON? Because this application
Mm-hmm.
slash foo plus JSON is an established convention for JSON subtypes. But now we need to subtype the OCIV subtype, or it could be OCIV minus node plus
Right.
JSON,
Yeah, I
which
think
looks
OCIF dash
like a
node.
formula.
Well,
But
I mean, not really. I
okay.
mean, it's in a string. It does because of the slash and the minus and the plus and all that kind of stuff. But but I think we're thinking of it as a MIME type. So I think OCIF dash node plus JSON is probably the most sensible thing.
I agree.
Um,
That makes sense to me.
I mean,
Okay. So,
how else do people break multi-word JSON types, right? They probably break them with look. I guess let's look and see. Is it if it's broken? Is it snake case? Is it uh, underscore case or whatever when you do multiple words here? My guess is probably snake. So probably cat dash or minus. And then, yeah, you might in this, you might actually, I'm tempted to expand this example to like not elide the content, but actually just
put it
replicate
in.
it. Yeah,
Okay.
and just say like this is the entire thing. Like it's all of it. Um,
Okay. We'll do.
yeah. All right. If a node A contains a node B as its resource, we call this importing. It imports node B. All properties and extensions of node B are copied into an empty node A prime. Then the original node properties and extensions of A are copied also into A prime, possibly overriding things. Yeah, let's talk about that. In particular, the effective position and size is controlled by node A. That makes sense. The temporary node A prime is used instead of A. So you're saying, I don't know that you specifically say it here, you sort of imply it, but A takes precedence over B. Any duplicative properties and extensions in A overwrite those in B. I think that's what you're saying, right? It's like
So A
an array merge
contains.
or a hash merge.
Yeah. I think we defined the merge process when we defined the inheritance via parent-child.
Okay. So maybe
And
we've
this
already got
is
it.
similar to that, but we need to
Is
define the order. And in order
mhm.
to have the parent set a new position,
Yeah,
the parent needs
that
to
totally
be
makes sense.
imported as a second one.
Right. No, the parent overriding the child
Yeah.
in this case makes perfect sense. Do you know if it's the same? Um, do you know if it's the same merge process, or have you compared the two yet?
Yeah, it should be the same merge process, but here it's not parent-child. Here it's importer and importee or something like that.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, it might be worth mentioning then that it's the same, it follows the same process as parent-child. Um, I wonder if that's going to be a generally useful primitive, like when you're merging two nodes.
It is.
I think it is too. Here's like defining explicitly how they're merged based on the which one has precedence, you know. Um, yeah, okay.
What's
Um,
particularly tricky in the
mhm,
semantics for transclusion is that actually this imported node is used like a template and generates actually new nodes in the canvas. So if I
mhm,
have I have I have one node, let's call it C has D as a child,
mhm,
and now I'm
mhm,
displaying this over here and over here. So the C can be merged into that one and into that one. But the D needs to be replicated out of nothing as a child to this one and another one as a child to that one. Otherwise, we don't have different nodes on the canvas with different positions. So
mhm.
the process of transclusion actually generates new nodes. That's quite fancy. This is more complex than in the parent-child example, where we only talked about
How is it generating new nodes? I think of it as overriding the node properties on
the direct
uh
one, yes. So A is importing C. So these are merged into one node. And B
mhm,
is also importing C. That's also merged into the existing node. But
mhm,
the child D of C,
mhm,
we have these two, let's say, pages, and they both display the same thing. So this D
mhm.
needs to be on both pages. So this D needs to exist two times, but it wasn't existing two times before. So now we need to have
Oh,
A,
I
which imported
see. I
C,
see.
and has the D, which got cloned in. It doesn't work otherwise. So we
Yeah.
are effectively generating new nodes in the canvas, at least visually.
Hmm.
I
So
should
the run.
mention something. The semantics here are exactly the same as if you were to use another OCIF file as a resource.
Hmm.
The only difference is that the set of other resources are shared between this and the tree of nodes.
Can you say that again, Aaron?
That's
This
awesome. Yeah.
the semantics are what?
The
Or
the
the same?
same as if you have an entirely separate OCIF file and you include one in the other as a resource.
You're so
Oh,
right. This is wonderful.
that is cool. Yeah. Interesting.
Also, in going on that topic,
Hmm.
how it compares to just using a separate OCIF file, I'm
Hmm.
curious as to what actual applications will make use of this feature and how it is like semantically done. Like my experience is obviously with Godot engine, and my thought goes to like using a Godot scene in another Godot scene, but that those separate Godot scenes are separate files which have their own separate things. So the the having a separate OCIF file is the natural translation of that. So
Hmm.
I wouldn't have a way to generate nodes as resources as like a concept inside of Godot engine, but I'm not saying it's not a useful concept. It's not
Hmm.
a concept that maps in that case.
Hmm.
Let me ask a question on that. If you have a scene file in Godot, let's call it your master scene, and then you import a subscene called A in two places. What is Godot doing with that then?
So the instances of A each would have their own name, and then it would have the same semantics as you already discussed here, where any children of A are, you know, become their own nodes. It's effectively instancing as a template and duplicating.
Okay, so it's the same semantics.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think your observation that it's like importing an OCIF file is brilliant because that's exactly what we want. And the only difference is instead of importing a file, we are pointing it to a node with its children, and that is like an
Mhm.
implicit file which we are importing in another
Yeah,
location on the map.
right.
The same mechanism.
Yeah. And your question, Aaron, I want to try and motivate an answer real quick of like um what would people potentially use this for? So I mentioned this last meeting that Notion has the concept of transclusion in the application, and what most people use it for are cases where they want to duplicate content across many different locations and then be able to edit the the content in any of those locations and have it update everywhere. So it'd be the case where, assuming that these three were like these were transcluding this original set, I might want to come in and change this to C and have these things automatically update to change to C as well.
Right, it makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. And so you end up with that like a to give a practical use case in Notion, you might have a policy in your company that you want to reference on multiple pages of your company's internal wiki, and you want that policy to only be represented canonically in a single place. And when you change that policy, you would like it to be changed, like all the references to it to also be changed, because it's very important to not have like out of date policies in your internal knowledge base. And so that would be how you might use a feature. Transclusion makes a lot of sense in that case because you're referring there. All those transcluded locations are pointing back to the original canonical reference. Um,
True, but that also assumes, I guess, that you're working with a single OCIF file, um,
hmm
where you have multiple instances of that policy. Um,
hmm
the alternative would be if you had a dedicated OCIF file for the policy, which was included, and then that could be used in many OCIF files potentially.
hmm hmm
And it
Yeah,
should
no,
result
you're
in
right.
almost the same behavior as the transclusion.
Right. Yeah, I love that. If we can make it the behavior the same between those two cases, then basically authors have two choices of ways to handle this. I think in the case where there are cases where it makes sense, it's easy, it's just strictly more convenient to have a single file. And these would be cases where I would expect that people might even do things like embedding the assets in the file itself as base64. Like you just want to be able to pass around this big file and not have to pass around a directory with all these files that are relatively related to one another. Um, and so, authors can choose that direction, or they could choose the direction that you're mentioning, Aaron, where we actually have to pass around those multiple files together in order to fully constitute the canvas. But it has a lot of convenience mechanisms because of the file system.
What we also can define is how to copy or export a node. If we say when copying or exporting a node, all its direct children and recursively subchildren are also to be exported, then we
Mm-hmm.
have always the same notion of what's belonging together, even for importing, for transclusion,
Mm-hmm.
because it's always this parent-child structure that defines togetherness. We could also think about using groups also for that.
I think I think using the parent-child structure, using one structure and advising us to use one structure, I think is wise. When I was narrating this, I was thinking about the fact that it could be parent-child or group. Um, but I think, yeah, um, having one preferred way of implementing this is probably a better idea.
Parent-child can have inheritance. Group
Mm-hmm.
can have multiple, a thing can belong to multiple groups.
That's right. Yep.
So we need to think clearly here what we need.
Mm, yeah. What happens if you transclude a group?
Well, a
Is
group
there
has
any
members,
difference?
so all
Yeah.
members of the group
Yeah.
should be transcluded.
That doesn't
Both
seem
would work.
complex. Yeah, both would work. I can't think of any strange cases there. And yeah, even if you have a group, like let's do some drawing here. Even if you have a group, brings into back, that contains multiple, or a node that is contained in multiple groups, that should be fine too. So like these two guys are both groups, and I've got another thing, C. And in this case, B is in group A or group 1 and group 2. Group 1, group 2. And if I transclude B, then I'll get both A and C, interestingly, because I'll reconstitute both groups. So a single transclusion may reconstitute multiple groups.
Well, now I'm not following. So we have two groups. They're called
Hmm.
1 and 2. If you
Yeah.
transclude B, you get neither A nor C because you just transclude B. You can transclude a group, then you get the members of the group.
Can you transclude a group?
Why not? A group is in
Groups are relations.
uh.
You can't do that. They're not nodes.
Well, we could extend that as we did for almost all concepts we have.
Oh no, relations as resources. Oh my gosh. Well, okay, let's think about this. So transcluding B, I don't know that it's my desired behavior as like someone who's managing this canvas or building this canvas, that transcluding B would also include every node that it's grouped into. I think that's a special situation for parent-child, right? The fact that B happens to be in groups 1 and 2, like I just want to be able to transclude it down here and edit it into be good and have that update here, even though it's in two groups here.
Yeah, we
Um,
just don't care at all.
we just don't
But
care. I think with groups, like it's outside of the transclusion concept, really.
but it would be nice if you could just transclude a group. Why not?
It would be.
What would it mean? So then you would say A contains.
All right, so I could
Actually, no,
take.
it's right now we defined transclusion by merging. We merged
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
imported node into the master node, but we cannot
Hmm.
merge a relation into a node. That's just outside our type system. But it's different things.
Yeah, I don't know that I get what you're saying, and I get your
So
intention here of, yeah.
if you have a node and you want it import multiple nodes,
Use parent-child.
can we not have a representative of a group? Have we defined that on the groups?
That's a good question. I haven't looked at
And
groups in a few
then
months.
use that node?
Rel group. Yes. I think there is a way to do this. Let me see.
Group. Group has members and group has cascade delete. That's all.
Mm-hmm. What are we losing if we don't include group in the transclusion concept at all? You can't transclude a group. You can only transclude a node. You can transclude that node and all of its child nodes. What happens if you
Then you need
transclude
to
a
use
child?
parent child.
What happens if you transclude a child?
That node is transcluded, and if it has children again, then they are transcluded. It doesn't matter.
Got
If a
it.
node has parents or not, we don't care.
Got it. We only walk down. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, I would want to chew on that for a minute. So open questions of what to do with groups. Um, Max, given we've got about 10 minutes left, were there other things in this discussion that you wanted to hit on, or do you feel
No,
like you have it's covered?
this is our last point, sort of, the
Okay.
transclusion.
Got it. And you covered everything within transclusion that you wanted to cover.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, let me try and get at the try and like the main point that I was trying to get at earlier with the
Hmm.
transclusion being similar to
Hmm.
the file inclusion because
Hmm.
they are extremely similar, and of course it's a powerful tool by itself to just explain that feature to people. Um, but the main thing I'm wondering is it useful to have both this feature and the file including a feature,
Hmm.
or should we just instead find a way to like embed files inside of OCIF somehow, like as a blob of binary data, or just maybe a resource that's like a base 64 string that has all the file data. The reason I mentioned this as like a uh, potentially preferred alternative is because it is simpler to not have transclusion, and I believe in most use cases. Now you can certainly tell me if I'm wrong here about the use cases with canvases, but I'm thinking about the in resources, the non-file resources within those files that could potentially be shared. Now
Hmm.
with the domain I'm used to with like 3D characters, it's almost always the case where stuff like that is not shared. So for example, if you have one file with like your scene and it has
Hmm.
5 instances of a character Bob or whatever, then the mesh for Bob and the nodes for Bob's skeleton and the material for Bob are all going to be contained in that Bob file. But the Bob mesh is not used outside of the Bob model. Like the you're not going to have a
Hmm.
static Bob mesh just like sitting out there in the world or like Bob's face plastered on another object. Those things are usually self-contained to that specific place. This is
Hmm.
not always going to be the case. Like you could have a 3D model file that just has a generic grass material and just chuck it on many objects. But in a lot of situations in the 3D content, stuff like that isn't typically like quite reusable and quite that generic.
Hmm.
And I'm wondering how that would work with canvases. If the individual pieces of a subtree of nodes are typically expected to be reusable outside of that tree of nodes.
Hmm.
Well, at least in knowledge management apps like in Notion and Infinity Maps, transclusion is a built-in concept, which is more integrated than importing subfiles.
Hmm.
I think you can somehow switch to English if you want.
Yeah, and I've looked at this before at your reference. I think they have
Yeah, and
example boards or something, but yeah,
yeah, but I know this tool has transclusion.
for
I
sure.
wasn't aware of Notion, but
Hmm.
so,
Hmm.
but the point is that the current way how we define transclusion in the canvas and importing a file is different because in a file you can have other resources and other relations. And our current way of transclusion does not.
Hmm.
But also, what does it mean if one file imports another resource which happens to be an OCF file,
Max,
then
you mentioned
we can
y
take that root node and merge it in as we defined. But what happens to the relations in this other file? We can just add them to our own relations array.
So, Max, you mentioned relations. This actually brings another interesting point here. We have to explicitly define what happens to the relations of a transcluded node hierarchy, because if the relation
Hmm.
if the node hierarchy is acting as
Ah,
a template, and let's say
yeah.
like some of those descendant nodes are in a set, when those nodes are duplicated, do we um does the duplicated version of the node get added to the set? Does the template like node exist in the set in any meaningful sense, or is it just there to indicate that its instances are in part of the templated set?
These are the correct questions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are good questions. What this is
No,
pushing me towards, Max, is what this is pushing me towards is wanting to only allow the transclusion of individual nodes and not um, supporting the entire hierarchy. I know that that is that, and
well,
maybe by the time, yeah, that's not
the
that's
motivating use case
I
was to
know.
have a reusable object on pages
Yep. And
that
you
made,
this it goes all the way back to our motivation, right? Where I was saying
yeah,
I said that I believe that it is sufficient to have a transclusion that supports the idea of a node appearing in multiple places on the canvas. And you said it's especially useful if it contains a complex inner life, such as a number of child nodes. And so there's a question of whether we can achieve both of these motivations in a way that's conceptually simple enough and clean. Um, it's possible that we can only achieve the second one and that we decide it's valuable enough to leave it in as an extension that people can then choose to export to support or not. I think an important thing to remember in terms of like remembering that we're currently a container format for interchange between applications as opposed to true interoperability. And so as people export, if there are no canvases that support transclusion and they uh, export to a canvas that does not support transclusion, then just simply duplicating the nodes is an acceptable like step down, so to speak. Um,
yeah,
there's like, and then when it gets, round trips back to that canvas, then that node is no longer, those nodes are no longer and transcluded, they're duplicated, which is so you've lost some fidelity um, between those canvases. But um, there is sort of a natural way to fall back to a less rich feature here when exporting. Well, we're coming up on time. Max, what do you want
yeah.
to do for next steps here? Um,
Simplify seems to be the right angle.
okay.
Um,
What do
yeah,
you want to do? What do you want to do with 051 generally? Is this I haven't do you want to wait until we figure out transclusion before we release 051? And then kind of move from kind of bundle it all up together?
both is possible. I mean,
Yeah.
I have no opinion on that.
Okay.
We
Cool. Well,
could craft one to get it out quickly or finish
nah.
transclusion ideas. I really don't mind.
Yeah, I think we can wait and put it all together in one. The release process has some overhead to it, and there's no one that's particularly saying, I need this feature now. So I don't think we're under any time pressure here. So I think we should try and get them to get done together, but probably also shoot for something in the next like 2 to 4 weeks or so of getting 051 out there. So, righty. Whoo! I love coming to these meetings and stretching my brain every time. Fantastic.
Yes. Yeah, thanks for the good questions, Aaron. You
Yeah.
both help to simplify and complicate.
Well, it's our job as spec designers to poke holes at it in every opportunity we can, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Successful day when you brought up problems that someone has not thought through yet.
Honestly, when I've been designing like my own format especially, I've been thinking to myself a lot, like, gosh, how is somebody going to screw this up? Like
Mm,
somebody's going to read this and get it wrong. How are they going to do it, and how can I prevent that? Whatever that future possibility of screwing up is.
it's a great mindset, Aaron. Well, well, thanks, guys. I'll make sure we get a meeting on the calendar for 2 weeks from now, and talk to you guys then.
Have a good time.
Okay,
Thank you all.
bye.
Over and out.